Hello, everyone, and welcome into this week's TakeCast. Davis Mattek here with you. Very lucky, I feel, to be joined by Justin Phan from Unabated this week. You guys, I'm positive, know and love Justin's work. If you have ever played NBA Daily Fantasy, if you have ever engaged with the NBA as a speculation product, you are definitely on the shoulders of Justin, because if I were to credit one person with revolutionizing the way that people react and imbibe NBA news, it's definitely you. And since Justin, since you have started this product, it's only become more important and more essential to speculating on the NBA.
Thank you for having me. That was quite the intro. Just kind of putting my head down for the last decade plus, and hoping all that time and effort is going to some use.
Look, it definitely has. If you have ever been out at a dinner, it's 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Lock just happened, but like, we got to know, dude, is
Yeah,
Kawhi playing? Is Karl Anthony Towns resting? Do I need to move Naz Reid into all my lineups? Do I need to do a global swap? Justin Phan has been the one who has pushed the
yeah.
notification to your
I
phone.
I hope I've like interrupted many like dinner dates. Levitan was telling me that he would like give his kid a bath and that he would be dropping his phone in the tub because he would be scrambling to act on some noties. So I'm guilty. If your significant other, has been checking their phone religiously from the hours of 7 Eastern to 8:30 Eastern, I might have played a part.
100%. I mean, I think we all have our NBA notification stories. A couple ones that I remember. I once was in the middle of like a really intense game of what's the tic-tac-toe game that's vertical.
Or
Connect Four, and I remember I had about 47 seconds when Ersan Ilyasova was on the Bucks and he was out, and I was dating my
yeah,
now wife, and I was like, I'm so sorry, but like, you can't talk to me for the next 33 seconds while I global swap to whoever the backup power forward was for the Bucks there. So Justin, the reason why we're doing this, I mean, the first is the NBA season begins when you and I are recording this on Tuesday, October 15th. It begins in a week. And
Hmm.
also, we're not going to go full spoilers here. This is not the official announcement, but you have joined up with Unabated, a company that I am also a proud affiliate of. And there's going to be a very new and snazzy tool for NBA DFS, for NBA wagers, for NBA DFS pick'em. So let's talk a little bit about the tool and basically the big revolution that the tool is bringing.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty much a culmination of the decade plus I spent in the space and trying to build kind of the ultimate one-stop resource that gives you everything that you want, combining projections, tools, our data science, and news and information, obviously. So, I'll kind of start with the news part of it. Kind of taking a little bit of what you've seen over the years at Fantasy Labs and Underdog, applying it here. But I think the goal is going to be just to focus more on the hardest hitting stuff. So I want every time you're on a date with a girl and you're getting an unabated noti, when you pick up your phone, it should be something that you can act on. So I'm not going to hit you with the ninth man, John Conchar's out tonight. I'm not going to hit you with, a highlight of some dunk or um, some information on some player that has no relevancy to the slate. Every single alert that you get will be most likely actionable. So that's where we're trying to head. And I think news has really changed, over time since I've been in the space, where even as recently as like 3-4 years ago, if a player was ruled out, I would still have like a 30-second, 1 minute window to hit that news, whether it be
Right.
betting on the sides or betting player props, etc. Now it's like 5 to 15 seconds, on the lower end in some of these books, where you just don't have that window anymore to really, act. So my focus with this news product is less on the news, the breaking news itself, the finalized news, and more on like the build up and the lead in. You know, we want to be very much on top throughout the day to the minute on where a player's trending towards playing. And we're gonna pick anywhere from like 2 to 6 key injuries on a given slate, depending on the size. And we'll have a percent play that's updated throughout the day to the minute based on information. So we might get Luka questionable starting at 55% for the day. We might get a piece of information at 1 Eastern that, maybe he was a little limited through in shoot around or something like that. We'll bump that from 55 to 45, and that number will be updated throughout the day, and you will get notifications when we do update that number. I think the way we want to approach betting news is to get out ahead of it, and to hit it before it becomes too late. And
because for NBA, this is such an interesting thing. You don't get this for NFL.
Mm-hmm.
NFL, basically the way it works is the books just won't offer. Like let's say theoretically Xavier Worthy's questionable, just hypothetically,
right.
You won't get a line offered on Juju. You won't get a line offered on Justin Watson, whatever. But if sports books and these DFS pick'em sites, if they did that with NBA, if they didn't offer it, they would get no tickets. No one would play. So they can't manage that risk without taking the market away.
Right. Exactly. So the half the board's going to be off the not available, just because there's so many injuries on a given day. Right. So our focus is going to be giving you every bit of information leading in to where you can get those bets down an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours before it becomes too late, and that's going to be our focus, is to really hone in on that part of it and track leans throughout the day that way. So instead of a John Conchar, I don't know why John Conchar is just catching so many strays right now, but he's the one that comes to my mind.
You know what? Because he's questionable like every single night. When you said John, I was like, I've gotten a minimum of 170 John Conchar notifications to my phone. Like 100%.
And we used to get it all the time. Like we've gotten better at it. You've noticed, like from Fantasy Steps to Underdog, we like cut a lot of that stuff out because a lot of feedback we would get is like, this guy's questionable again. Like, who cares? Like, who gives a shit? Like, stop sending me, your daily like John Conchar questionable updates, right? But anyways, instead of getting a John Conchar out notification, you'll get a notification that'll say, this guy arrived to the game an hour before and is still in street clothes, in the locker room. We're gonna do all that fine-tuned digging for you. The let him knows, which is what Donovan Mitchell tweets out every time before he plays. We're gonna get granular to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. We got a piece of breaking news one time on Danilo Gallinari that was on Facebook, and it was in Italian that we had to translate like roughly, and that's how we got the news. So you got to do what you got to do sometimes. But like I said, we're gonna focus on that portion of the buildup more here at Unabated. With the projections, obviously, we're going to aim to be the most accurate in market. We have the team. We hired Stephen Byron Keach. He was at RG running their projections for over a decade. He's on the team. We got John Rodabaugh. He worked with me at Underdog, and he was part of the ETR team for years. So I feel really good about our team's ability to offer industry-leading projections. The thing that's going to really separate us is we're going to be offering conditional projections. So let's say
that's the big one.
Luka is questionable. I think how most people handle that situation and content, or whatever, is they'll say Kyrie Irving's usage rate goes up 2% when Luka's off the court. Spencer Dinwiddie's assist rate goes up 1.5%. This guy averages, 2 more DK points per minute, when he's off the court. It's more in generalities, right? So you have like a general idea, like if Luka gets ruled out, you got to go bet like Kyrie and Dinwiddie, right? The lack of a more definitive answer out there is what I've noticed. And what we're going to do with our tools is we'll give you the option to toggle between Luka in and Luka out. You can go exactly see how many points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks his teammates benefit from when he's not playing. And we're going to be able to compare that to the market, right? So here's a real life application, right? In that situation, I think a lot of people would just gravitate maybe towards betting Dinwiddie or Kyrie PRA, whatever, overs if Luka's rolled out.
For sure.
But all we know through DFS, we know through betting, the market price or a player's salary is all that's relevant, right? And maybe the market has largely baked in the downside for Luka being out, and there isn't much edge on a Kyrie prop anymore relative to the market, right? What you're going to be able to identify using our tool is exactly how big the edge is on every player. So maybe instead of going to bet Kyrie or Dinwiddie, it might be Klay or Derek Lively instead. So that's something that nobody else has on the market. And it gives you, it kind of goes along with this theme of what I'm talking about. We want to get you prepared and acting before the news is finalized, right? So you can go in our tool, you can toggle back and forth. And let's say I send that Luka Discord alert out to our users that we downgraded Luka from 55% to 35%. You go to our props tool, you pull up the Mavs projections with Luka out. You compare it relative to the market that exists right now. You can go bet that hours before Luka is officially ruled out, So I think that's kind of the way betting the NBA has shifted. I used to just do a lot of this stuff on Action Network where we're betting it like 10 seconds after a news item breaks, right? And it's just like that was good like years ago, maybe, but it isn't as effective a strategy now.
So like I think the way like the people who are best at this public facing now are the ETR guys. Like if I was gonna subscribe to a props package or whatever, it would definitely be them. I think I want to say they maybe even use a Telegram actually for the prop stuff, like where it's like instantaneous. You get the notification, you have like 13 seconds to get it, and you got to go get it, or it's gone. And like those guys always beat the market. But yeah, if you are going to be self-sustaining, or if you're not going to be in a prop group like that, then yeah, you need to be basically you need to figure out a way to bet a number before it changes. Now, obviously, like then you get into a whole thing of like, how do you do risk calculation based on like, well, how often do I lose this? How often do I win this when the projection is wrong? So how often do I win Anthony Davis PRA, points, rebounds, assists when LeBron plays? Anyway, how often do I lose when I get the news right? Like it's a whole different thing, that is above my pay grade, but it definitely is how you have to do it.
That's a very interesting wrinkle, though, that I think we can be adding in the future, right? Like if you're gonna look at an AD PRA over and LeBron's questionable, if it's already maybe a little, if there's an edge there already, maybe just a small edge, I think it's more bettable, in the case that LeBron does play. You're not totally dead in the water, like you still have some EV there, right? So I think that for sure, because the market's often middle. They're taking kind of a middle stance sometimes with these questionable players and their teammates and whatnot, and kind of maybe comparing. That makes some sense in terms of like how bettable those are beforehand.
So that right there, that is a 10,000 foot view of the tool. There will be more information on that stuff as it comes. If you guys want to check out the Unabated YouTube, follow Unabated on Twitter, all that stuff. There is going to be more information on that. Now, Justin, it is time. It's time for us to talk some ball. Near and dear to my heart. The NBA season is about to start. By the way, this is just kind of neither here nor there. But if you were a gold tier or better player on DraftKings last year, you get League Pass for free You can just
There
go
you
and
go.
check your stuff. You don't even have to pay for it, which is not, I think you get 2 months free if you just have a DraftKings account, which is pretty nice. So I would encourage you to go and do that. You can do it on your phone. I watch a lot of Thunder games before bed because the Thunder normally play at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Central Time. So it's very nice. I can just watch those before bed. That's where I want to start. A Thunder fan for as long as they've been in Oklahoma City. Everyone has them as the number 1 seed this year. They add Isaiah Hartenstein. They actually get Alex Caruso back. Very few people know this. He was a member of the Oklahoma City Blue. They trade Josh Giddey to do this. I actually want to start this from a negative perspective, though. Tell me what could go wrong here. What are people not seeing that could be like, well, they have a lot of these really good young players, but they don't have X, Y, or Z that could keep them from being the Western Conference champions?
I mean, I think it's playoff experience more than anything. You kind of see them get in those spots, and that's why the Miami Heats of the world, rise to the top when they're put in those situations, right? I think regular season basketball is dramatically different than playoff basketball, and stylistically, I think they tend to get bogged down offensively at some points, get a little bit too reliant on SGA. Floor spacing might be a bit of an issue at some points, like they might have to get, Isaiah Joe a little bit more involved than expected at some points. But I think that's it. It's playoff experience, and I think last year kind of going through the fire was very, very helpful for them, just being in those spots. I do have them going to the finals this year, but that would be my biggest drawback.
So there are a couple things. The first being, we do tend to, as NBA nerds, we do tend to salivate over guys who look the part and do kind of what we want. So Jalen Williams obviously looks like, he's incredible, but the 3-point shooting, the shot looks pretty nice. It's pretty good, but it's not there yet. I mean, you could not drop a more basketball Twitter player than Alex Caruso. Like a legitimate 3-and-D guy. He shoots like 39% career on threes on heavy volume. Lou Dort is like was created in a lab to be like a really good power forward in the modern NBA. I would say one thing about all of these guys is there's basically 2 guys on the team who can get their own shot, and it's Chet and it's Shea. Now, maybe wing Jalen Williams gets there. Like he definitely had some stretches where you're like, oh, like this guy could actually take over the offense and maybe even kind of make Holmgren's role smaller. But he was really bad in the playoffs. Jalen Williams was really, really bad. So that would be another concern I would have, is that these really great teams, it's like, well, the other thing, and no one would ever want to say this out loud, but is having a slight ball dominant point guard like Shea as your best player instead of an apex wing player actually ideal in the modern NBA. Like, I think it probably doesn't matter, but you could give some NBA GMs truth serum and they'd be like, we really would prefer our best player to be taller than 6'3", like in general.
Sure. I do think the bull case, though, is obviously their depth. And I think their versatility is incredible this year. Take this matchup. They're playing the Nuggets on opening day. I think there's a good chance we'll see Hartenstein start that game. And they'll go double big with Hartenstein and Chet in that matchup, with Hartenstein guarding Jokic, right? And you have the versatility with Caruso. He played a lot of 3 in his career, too. Like, he can slide down. J-Dub is positionless. He can play anything. He played point guard. He's played some center. They just have amazing depth. Like, Cason Wallace was a revelation. He gave them really good minutes, especially during the playoffs. Their depth is insane. Aaron Wiggins has acquitted himself as a guy who needs to be in the rotation every night. And it's funny, like when Nikola Topic gets back, like I'm curious next year what his role even is going to be like. This team is so deep.
They have a guy they traded 3 first-round picks for who's going to start the year in the G League. in
Yeah.
Usman Jang. Yeah,
Yeah.
like they like go do yourself a favor. Go look at their rotation projection, and you're gonna see guys like Cason Wallace. It's like just if Cason Wallace was a Laker, do you know the national media stories we would get about Cason Wallace? There would be breathless
Yeah.
conversations about Cason Wallace should be second team all defense as a rookie, and it's like Cason Wallace is basically not factoring in to
Yeah.
Oklahoma City's rotation, which is just insane.
Yeah. I do think the bull case though is that leap from like J Dub and Chet, J Dub especially. I think his ceiling, what he can do, what he can add to his game is really going to be the X factor for this team. I think he's still one of the more underrated players in the league. I think he's going to show that this year and take another big leap.
Obviously I hope you're right. Chet getting better at defense, Chet just like understanding positional space better. Maybe Chet, maybe we don't. I guess I haven't watched them in the preseason yet. Maybe Chet's been eating a lot. Maybe Chet has just been like in the gym, benching 225 and hammering protein shakes. That would be
Muscle.
that could. Yeah, I mean that could be pretty big for them. I think probably the Hartenstein trade means the opposite. Like it probably means they're actually just like, do whatever you want. We just want you to score. We got your back when we need to be. So actually, I guess we should talk about the Denver Nuggets they are. I know they didn't really have a great season last year,
Yeah.
but to me, they have the best player in the NBA. That should probably mean they are the title favorite, basically, like any given year. I guess they let Kentavious Caldwell-Pope go, and they're just gonna figure it out. It's Christian Braun, Julian Strawther, Russell Westbrook is the backup point guard. Guys like, and they ran really bad. They traded up to get Daron Holmes, and then he tore his Achilles in the summer league, which is really, really brutal. What do you make of the 2024 Denver Nuggets?
Very, very bearish on them overall.
Yeah,
We got to talk about Jamal Murray. So Jamal looked like a shell of himself this summer playing
with
for
Team
Canada.
Canada. Yeah.
He looked terrible, and he's already dealing with a knee issue right now that they're managing. So even just for the regular season opener, we're limiting his minutes. Like we only have him projected right now for like 28 minutes for the opener. I think it's going to be a thing for him throughout the season. And the problem with this Nuggets team, they don't have the depth to afford to lose someone like Jamal Murray for 30 games. You talk about Christian Braun.
Maybe 10 games.
Yeah. I think he's going to miss more than 15, 20. I think he's going to be managed quite a bit.
He's got a knee injury that is never,
Yeah.
it's just like not quite right. Yeah.
Exactly. And you talk about Christian Braun. I think he's way more suited to be a reserve than a starter. He's kind of thrust in this role now without KCP. And the back end of the rotation is very, very improving. Like Julian Strawther, Hunter Tyson, Peyton Watson. They have veterans in Chonchar and Dario Saric, but like I'm not getting too excited about any of those guys really. And it's just going to be tremendous pressure on Nikola Jokic to continue to carry this team. MPJ had a very healthy season last year relative to all
yes, he did.
that he had, but you never know if those pop up again. Like if he has some injury things, like they don't have much margin for error is what I'm getting at, especially if Jamal isn't that 1B to Jokic's 1A that we've seen playoff Jamal be. Puts a lot on Russell Westbrook, which, as a guy that Jokic was very excited about, joining the team, but it's 2024 and let's be realistic. Like, we all want to kind of root for Russ, but that's not a guy you're looking at like as a key contributor to a championship level team. Right. So I think there's a ton of questions overall about this Nuggets team. And yeah, the season could not have started on a worse foot for them with Jamal already dealing with this knee stuff.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I guess your out would be they do have a bunch of guys. Like theoretically they just have a bunch of young guys, and if you ran into like, oh, actually, Zeke Naji added a 3-point shot, and we can just play him as the 4 next to Jokic, or he's like really good as a backup center. Like he's crushing as a backup center, or Julian Strawther is 2025. I don't know. There's always like a bench guy who ends up being better. He's the new Alex Caruso. He was like a good player in a limited sample, but actually is way better than we think. Or I mean, they basically, if you look at the way they constructed their roster, they're kind of like all in on Dario Saric. That was like their big free agent acquisition. Maybe there's something there. I don't know. I mean, I always kind of like Dario. I don't know if I'd be counting on him.
Dario, the homie. I mean, he's provides splashes, right? Like little flashes here and there. That's not a guy that's gonna be consistent enough for you to lean on. You know, like he had really good spurts for the Warriors when he was there, but then he kind of faded, you know, and got out of the rotation, right? So they have a lot of unproven people on the back end of the roster, a little bit too much for me. And then with the top end guys, big injury questions with Jamal.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Actually, I didn't even have this on our thing to discuss, but we actually should talk about the Golden State Warriors because this is the first time they really have made. Yeah, well, they've made a decision as an organization that had to have been hard for them to let Klay walk. Like it honestly had to have sucked for Klay, had to have sucked for them to be like, you basically are the most replaceable of the 3 guys, like of Klay, Draymond, and Steph. You're the most replaceable one. They are also another all-time, very similar to the Nuggets. They got a lot of guys. They have they have a lot of guys who could patch the holes.
Yeah.
They probably right now in early October don't know what they're gonna get outside of Kuminga, Draymond, and Steph. They're like, well, whoever plays well is going to end up playing a lot. I guess Moses Moody probably agitating for more minutes. What is your breakdown? Well, and Wiggins. I mean, who knows what they're going to get from Wiggins either, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of question marks with this team. I think it's a team that's a little bit too deep, you know, like they have a lot of guys that can play, but then when you get in the playoffs and that rotation is short, and I don't think they have enough top end talent to really hang with some of these OKCs, you know. Right now, they don't know who their starting shooting guard is. That's a big question for them. Is it Brandon Podziemski? Is it DeAnthony Melton, who they just acquired and has been playing really well during the preseason? That's a big question. You know, a big question is
Kerr loves Podziemski.
He does, and they were in talks with I believe Utah for Lauri Markkanen, and their unwillingness to include Podziemski is kind of what derailed, you know, any kind of potential deal. And you know, they were in on Paul George as well, and consistently what I heard out of their front office with like Mike Dunleavy is that they love Podziemski. So I would guess he starts, but he doesn't have a stranglehold on the job by any means. I think DeAnthony Melton's very much on his heels. The X factor for this team is Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah,
this guy is immensely talented, just on raw skills. Can he put it together and be a consistent guy where you can lean on and play 30, 32 minutes a night? Huge question, because some nights he looks like the most talented guy on the floor, and other nights he's getting benched for, you know, massive defensive lapses, right? And it's just like kind of the growing pains of being like a really talented young player in the league, right? At some point, you're just going to have to.
A really talented player who, like, weirdly, they've incubated those guys so much because Steph and Klay and Draymond were there. Like, what responsibility has Kuminga ever had on this team? You know, like that is definitely not fair because he got minutes for a team that won an NBA championship. So that's not 100% fair, but it is fair in the sense of they still probably win that championship if Moses Moody is playing all his minutes or whatever. Like, or, you know, and obviously a huge part of that was Wiggins. And like, I mean, I don't like, what do they even think they're going to get out of Andrew Wiggins? I don't like, if Wiggins can make 35% of his threes in 28 minutes a night and play good defense, like they would be doing cartwheels, but they probably don't even expect that.
Exactly. he went through a bevy of personal stuff, obviously, a few seasons ago, and it just hasn't quite been the same, and I think their expectations are low, and kind of what they get from him is just a bonus, they have the depth to trim his minutes, in the mid-20s if they need to, right? And where the Warriors are, they're in a weird spot where they're still trying to kind of contend now and maximize Steph's window, but they also have like a bunch of like younger players that are like pining for more minutes as well, right? So you look at every position, there's like this like battle between the old guard and the new guard,
at
right?
every position.
At shooting guard, it's Podziemski versus D'Anthony Melton, right? At small forward, it's like Andrew Wiggins versus Moses Moody, who might not even be in the rotation from day one. It's crazy.
Right.
At power forward, they have like Kuminga and Kyle Anderson, right? And at center, they have Trace Jackson Davis, who was incredible in,
He's very good.
Very good in short spurts, to end last season, versus Kevon Looney, the guy who's been the unsung hero of all these championship teams, right? So
and Draymond versus all these guys.
Yeah, exactly. I think Draymond is relatively safe. I think they're pretty comfortable. I don't think he's gonna get sunsetted like Klay anytime soon. But yeah, it's just a fascinating spot to be in. I'm very curious at what point maybe they do make that switch, right? And go younger. And they're playing Moses Moody over Buddy Hield and Gary Payton II. They're playing Trace Jackson Davis over Kevon Looney and maybe eating a little bit into Draymond, right? They're playing Kuminga 30 plus minutes a night and Podziemski 30 plus minutes a night. So very interesting spot to be in. But I don't envy Mike Dunleavy's spot. I thought he inherited a very, very tough hand that Bob Myers rightfully
the one thing he does have is he can go $1 billion into the tax and they'll just let him do it. That's the one edge that he has. They'll just like, well, whatever, it costs what it costs, and that's
But
fine.
I do think Leica might be a little bit more practical now and realistic about their actual chances. I think he was willing to go billions in the luxury tax for a legit contender.
Right.
I think this Warriors team probably projects more likely in the play-in range than anything, like they were last year. So a little bit harder to justify cashing those checks for a team like that.
Do you think there is any universe where Steph Curry gets traded? Because we've heard reporting. It was what was it? Last year, Ramona Shelburne reported that there was serious conversation about trading him to the Lakers.
I would, if I had a guess, I think it'd be more likely that LeBron comes to San Francisco.
I'm even wrong. I'm actually wrong. The reporting was the other way around. It was the reporting was LeBron to Golden State. Yeah.
Yeah. I would think the only thing is like you saw in the Olympics how fucking awesome and fun it is to watch those two play together. And I think you watch the Olympics and you kind of feel robbed a little bit that we don't get to see more of them together. How incredible it is. And I know like fans rail against super teams, but it makes for incredible television. Like when you're watching all these talented players on the floor at one time, right? Like who, honestly, as a basketball purist, who doesn't want to watch Steph and LeBron play together? Like they just fit so well, and they complement each other perfectly. But I don't imagine a scenario where Steph would ever leave. I think Draymond is close to a lock too. I think, they stood by him throughout the Jordan Poole thing. They've had really kind of dark days with him, and they've kind of rode with him. I think he's a guy that kind of, goes out with Steph as a Warrior.
I think you're probably right. I mean, it would just be honestly, it would just be sad. I think for at this point, Steph has gone so far with the Warriors to see him on another team.
And what helps too, Davis, is these guys have rings already. Like they don't got to go ring chase, in their final years of their career. Like they're good.
Yeah. Draymond doesn't need to go be the 11th man on the Miami Heat. Yeah. Curry doesn't need to take a pay cut to go be a
Yeah.
Timberwolf or whatever.
Like Steph, especially after the Olympics, his like legacy, his career solidified. Nothing else to
Yes.
prove.
Yeah. Yeah. That is 100% true. So that's the past of the NBA. The Warriors are kind of the story of the last, I don't know, 15 years of the NBA. LeBron and the Warriors, kind of like of my time of being an adult, like LeBron and the Warriors have been the dominant discussion.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone enjoyed that, because the next 15 years are going to be dominated by one dude. Victor Wembenyama gave everyone like 1 year to kind of deal with it, to kind of get used to what it's going to be like. He showed up in the Olympics. He probably wasn't the best player at the Olympics, but he was one of the 4 best players at the Olympics, probably after Durant, LeBron, and Steph. Gave Team USA like a legitimate fright. Was everywhere on defense. He can dribble. He can shoot threes.
Yeah.
And you look at the San Antonio Spurs roster.
Mhm.
They didn't spend a ton of money. They didn't go crazy, but they brought in a real point guard, which the stat is basically that when Wemby was on the court last year with someone who you could classify as a real point guard,
Trey
whether
Jones.
it would be Trey Jones or the other guy whose name I'm forgetting, they were basically, when Sochan wasn't the point guard, they were, I believe, plus 2.5 points per 100 possessions when Sochan was not the point guard, and that was for like a 28-win team. Now he has Chris Paul as his point guard. They draft this fella, Stephen Castle. They're probably Zach Collins is probably just going to go. He's just going to be a pure backup now. They're just starting Wemby at center. And they also got Harrison Barnes, who is like a very fine NBA player. I truly could see the Spurs winning 45 games this year. I mean, that is like 8 wins higher than their total, I believe.
Yeah.
But if they I guess it's do they do the whole Embiid thing with Wemby? Does he play 28 minutes a night? Does he rest every other night? Like, what do they do with him?
So in terms of range of outcomes, and knowing the Spurs, I would actually think it's more likely that they're in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes again than winning 45 games and pushing for a play-in. I think that has a lot to do with like their supporting players more than anything. Like Wemby, in terms of singular talent, might be one of the best players I've ever seen in my life play. When it's all said and done, I've never seen anybody like him in my lifetime. But his greatness, you just kind of look at the supporting cast. Like Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes in the year 2024 don't inspire too much confidence for me. I think they're solid starters.
They're just fine.
Like HB is more like a minute eater to me. Like he just will eat 28 minutes a night.
Yeah, he's a 4.2 ERA pitcher, but he's Lance Lynn. He's gonna start 30 games.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look at Devin Vassell, who's definitely their second best player on that team. He's already injured. He's going to miss the start of the season too. So I think the closer you kind of get and deeper we get in the load management stuff with Chris Paul, with Devin Vassell, with Harrison Barnes, with Wemby becomes pretty real to me. And if you're San Antonio, you got to have eyes on the prize, baby. Like you got to Cooper Flag is right up there with one of the better prospects we've seen in some time. Like if you are able to freaking pair Wemby and Cooper Flag together, it might be game over for the next decade, So while I'm as high on Wemby as anybody else, I don't see enough on this team right now for them to kind of seriously push. The rookie they drafted, Stephon Castle, like a defensive menace, but he might not be in the rotation from day one. I think he's like behind Blake Wesley and Malachi Branham right now. So I think they're very much still optimizing for the long term as they should be.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that was surprising about them last year was they really did let Wemby play quite a bit. I mean, he was
Yeah,
getting up
they
to like 32, 33 minutes per game. They were playing him at
did.
center. Like, I kind of thought they would just be stubborn about how it
Yeah,
started at the beginning.
yeah,
Like, he was playing at power forward, like very similar to how Kevin Durant was a shooting guard with PJ
yeah.
Carlesimo was his coach in Seattle. They were just like, we stink. We want to stink. We know this
Mhm,
guy is good. But I
mhm.
think very smartly, the Spurs know like there is something to like developmental curve, getting guys, and like that game against the Bucks on national TV, they were like, play 35 minutes. You really
Yeah,
you want to take this super seriously? You want to learn something? You want to know what it's like to play against a great? Like, go for it. So maybe second game of a back-to-back on the road against the Houston
yeah,
Rockets. Maybe we don't see Wemby, but like national TV against the Thunder, you play all the minutes. We're playing home to the Heat, and bam, you can play all the minutes, like stuff
yeah.
like that.
That's where
Can
you
work
get better, right? I mean, in those spots, you're not going to get better playing, the Jazz second unit, in the second leg of back to back. Those are, I don't know, like I would equate it to maybe like empty calories a little bit for a guy like that.
100%.
So you want to keep it as trim and as efficient as possible for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just very interesting because obviously the Spurs are this just, very legendary organization.
Yeah.
Feels like every big man they've ever taken high in the draft has turned into this like crazy legendary player. And
Mhm.
it's so strange. Again, my entire life they've been a great team. So it's just
Yeah.
strange to have them in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes,
I
of which there are going to be a lot of teams
For sure. I
interested.
still think though, like, and you look at their roster, and I'm having like fairly high standards here. Like, who are true building blocks for the next 5 years on this team? Obviously, Wemby, obviously, Devin Vassell. I think you can make arguments for guys like Stephon Castle or Keldon Johnson or City Sissoko, but
Well, what
they're
if
like,
what if Sochan did learn how to dribble? If Sochan did learn how to dribble, there could be something there.
I, I
I
can't,
get
I can't, I can't stomach again. I can't stomach any more points, Sohan. I
I
can't.
I I I got what they were going for because
I
that
know.
is a
I
valuable archetype of player. It just
totally,
really did not happen. Yeah.
totally. But going back to my point, like they really maybe like for definitively have like two really good future building blocks, right? So
Yeah.
I think they are definitely on the hunt. They need another guy. So I think they realize that Chris Paul HB are just like short term plug these holes. Play 28, 30 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Uh, and until our kids are ready type of thing,
Now
right?
they do have a ton of picks. So they have Chicago's lottery protected pick, Charlotte's lottery protected pick, unprotected pick from Atlanta, swap rights with Atlanta next year. They have a bunch of seconds. They have a 2027 unprotected pick from Atlanta. They have a sentence so long with Boston from the Derek White trade in 2028. I like can't even get to the end of it. So they have a ton of
They do.
picks.
They do.
So, that can go one of two ways. That can be you just wait and let the picks convey spot,
Yeah.
or you can move. I mean, Oklahoma City has done this a couple times where they've used the picks and been like, all right, well, let's just trade for the guy we want. Now, sometimes that doesn't work out when it's
Yeah.
Usman Jang.
The problem with the OKC model of compiling all these picks is the senior team, being the Thunder, runs out of roster spots.
They
You got
literally are having to throw picks away. They're literally having to trade picks.
go to the blue for a season. We don't have enough space in the big league squad. Like that becomes like a legitimate problem
Like a
for
huge
that.
problem.
Like,
Yeah.
especially when you're going out and getting like Caruso's or Hartensteins that are filling in roster spots. Like you're trying to.
And they didn't even have to spend a first round pick to get Caruso.
Yeah. So you're getting to a point where you're contending and you're trying to fill your team with vets. Even fewer spots for these super young, talented draft picks, right? So at some point, you just have too many, and you need to just. That's why you see some of these deals where they're like 4 or 5 first round picks. It's like it's a lot, but there's a chance that a couple of those picks might have to spend half a season in the blue. Like
Yeah.
what realistically, you look at OKC and Topic next season. and he was in the conversation for like a top 3 pick at some point before he got hurt. Is he gonna like over under 20 minutes a game for him next year? I would probably take under.
Way under. He'll be behind Cason Wallace next year because
That's what
Cason
I'm
Wallace
saying.
knows how to play basketball already.
I was trying to be generous there, but like, that's the extent of what you're looking for from this OKC team. Like, he's not going to be taking minutes from like Caruso, Lou Dort, even Cason Wallace, obviously not SGA. So it's like that becomes a big problem at some point, where I think the Spurs are going to be patient though. I think they're still at least 2-3 years away from really kind of trying to make that jump. So they're going to sit on their picks, and when the time is right, I think Presti played it perfectly. When the time is right, you want your young core to grow together too. That's such a big part of this for the OKC. All those guys got all these reps together, and just kind of expedites the process and the chemistry too.
Yeah, and they set themselves up. What you want to do is, sure, maybe you do have to waste some of these first round picks. Maybe you do run out of roster spots. But what you want to set yourself up for is like what the Knicks have been doing, what the Thunder have been doing, which is like when the next top 5 player in the NBA is disgruntled, doesn't want to be there anymore, you say, all right, come on, come here. Yeah, we got room for you. Although let's do the New York Knicks and Minnesota Timberwolves trade. So I think pretty clearly a win for the New York Knicks, in my opinion. I've kind of always been a Karl Anthony Towns guy. Julius Randle was a weird fit with like a super ball dominant guard. Now losing Hartenstein is not good for that Knicks team. He was a pretty big part of that team. I honestly don't love the trade at all for the Timberwolves either, but they kind of made it for money reasons. And honestly, if the Timberwolves take is we kind of just wanted out of paying the Karl Anthony Towns a lot of money business, and this was a way to do it and like not kill our team for this year, because they should just be all in on Anthony Edwards, right? That really should be the move. So the Knicks have a good roster. Karl Anthony Towns. How much longer is Karl Anthony Towns' contract?
He has 4 years, $220 left on his contract. That 4th year is a player option for $61 million, and he's picking that up. So
he's picking that up
for $220. So I think the general reaction from this trade is that the Knicks won. But I will say, I don't think it's as easy as simple as that. Obviously, like
the Timberwolves are going to be worse this year without Karl Anthony Towns.
Sure, but like if you're the Knicks, committing $220 million to Karl Anthony Towns over the next 4 years is a massive financial commitment, especially if this doesn't work out. In the NBA, there's one winner a year and 29 losers. And the Knicks are better and more relevant than they've been in a long time now. I'm still skeptical they have enough to really contend and win a title and push a Boston. But this is high stakes, and what you're giving up is valuable too. You're giving up Julius Randle's deal that's expiring, and you're giving up one of the best value contracts in the league in Dante DiVincenzo. So yes, on the court, they win, but financially, this is a huge gamble for them that could easily bite them in the ass. And the Knicks have been very un-Knicks-like for the last couple seasons. They've been very disciplined, and have not done Knicks things and blown draft picks and made knee-jerk reaction trades. So for all this patience that they've had, it's a little surprising to me that they would kind of make their stand and cash in a lot of those chips on Cat, who I want to hear your stance. I mean, obviously a tremendously talented player.
Best shooting big man of all time.
One of the best shooting big men of all time, if not the best. I agree. But a player that has had the tendency to disappear in big spots as well. So
he's a terrible defensive player, which is just like if you start from there, being a terrible defensive player at center or a power forward, big schematic problem when you don't have teammates who can make up for that. Now, he has the luxury of playing with OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, who are two of the best wing defenders in the entirety of the league. So that's going to keep, and Tibbs is their coach. Like, I'm sure Tibbs is actually almost relishing the opportunity to be like, I'm going to make Cat a dog. I'm going to make Cat a great defensive player. Cat is going to be blocking shots and keeping people out of the paint. Like, he will love that. But you can't get over exactly what you said, which is that Karl-Anthony Towns has basically never shown up in the playoffs. He commits these awful fouls.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He commits these.
The cat shocked face that I just hacked a guy, and I'm for some reason flabbergasted that they would call a foul when I just smacked the shit out of someone's forearm is crazy to me. But anyway,
it's nuts. I've always been like higher than the market on Cat because you could say all that stuff about him, and at the end of the day, you just go look at his numbers and you're like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It's like literally having one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA, but playing center for us and getting a ton of rebounds and like being a good passer and not really like Cat fouls too much, but he doesn't really turn the ball over. A lot of big men, a lot of high usage big men. Embiid's really bad at this. A lot of these guys have a lot of turnovers. He doesn't really turn the ball over.
Yeah.
You know, I can totally see how it works. I can totally see how it works.
You can talk yourself into it, and I can too. It's just a huge commitment financially to make to that guy. And to that guy who hasn't been that guy when it's mattered the most is all I'm saying. You know, I would kind of also preach a little like patience from people who are just everybody just wants to have a knee-jerk reaction like, no, Knicks won, you know. I think it's a lot more nuanced than that. And I will say that the fact that Tim Connolly is on the other side of this deal makes me pause even more and think, maybe this might work out for Minnesota. Tim Connolly being the guy who architected the Denver Nuggets title team, who took this Minnesota team to another level last year. His bona fides are undeniable. So for me, I'm not going to be that guy that thinks I know more than Tim Connolly. But also, like, for them, it is also a little bit interesting that, you know, a team that's ascending, that has probably the face of the league, you know, the future face of the league on their team, is cutting payroll. That's also, you know, a little bit confusing, especially to fans seeing that, you know.
That's definitely true. I wonder, like, on how much longer does Julius Randle have on his deal?
I believe he has just a year left, but let me.
Yeah. So he ends up like and DiVincenzo, man, DiVincenzo is a really good player. He really was only included for salary matching reasons, but it sucks for the Knicks staff to give him up. And if I don't know if I got offered a bet right now, like who wins the conference championship next between the Wolves and the Knicks? Yeah. I actually might even take the Wolves. Like, the West is crazy. The East has 4 really good teams and then kind of a lot of flotsam. Yeah. But the Wolves have the tiebreaker, which is they have the best player. Well, Anthony Edwards is better than any individual player on the Knicks, and that carries a lot of weight. Gets them better free agents, makes them more attractive for disgruntled guys who want to be traded. Yeah, just makes their ceiling higher. Like, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I can't like Dante was a massive loss. That dude hit some huge shots for them. His contract, like I said, is one of the best values in the league. And Shams reported that I think the original construct of this deal had like Mitchell Robinson or something for matching purposes, and Minnesota or the Knicks weren't interested. And then it was the inclusion finally of DiVincenzo and that pick that got this over the finish line. So obviously anybody that follows the league closely knows how valuable a guy like Dante is off the bench.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, let's just end with a little bit of Celtics talk. They are the defending NBA champions. You know, it's kind of funny. They basically no one really thinks they're any good. Kind of like everyone knows the Celtics are great, but everyone just kind of loves to disrespect Tatum. Everyone loves to make fun of Jaylen Brown. He can't dribble. Everyone loves to make fun of Joe Mazzulla. Weirdly, everyone loves to give credit to their like very ancillary pieces. Like everyone loves, Drew
Derek
Holiday,
White.
man. Drew Holiday, Derek White, winners. They just win. Al Horford, dude, Al Horford just wins. I mean, Chris Stapps did unlock a lot for them, but then was injured in the playoffs, and it's like it did, basically didn't matter at all. To me, they feel like the sort of team that could be a little bit fragile year to year because Tatum and Brown they're just not, they're top 13 players, but they're not top 5 players. So that is kind of interesting. They probably just win 64 games and win the championship again. But it does, for whatever reason, the Celtics do feel a smidgen more fragile.
They do, especially with that injury of Porzingis. And to be fair, they basically won the title without him. And
Without him,
you know, game or two in the finals, but like they look every part dominant without him. So, but I do think, he's going to miss a couple months to start the season. Al Horford's older. And then you kind of look beyond that. It's like you're leaning on like Luke Cornett, Xavier Tillman, Nehemias Queta. I mean, they're very capable players, Cornett and Tillman particularly. But
yeah,
there are paths, to where a guy like Porzingis is so important for their rim protection and their defense. So I feel so boring, like, to call this the title favorite. I think they deserve that title as much as we want to kind of disrespect Jaylen and Jason and that team and kind of roll our eyes at how talented they are.
yeah.
But they're like the Nuggets. I'm like, they're at top of the mountaintop until you knock them off. That they belong to, they deserve to be there, right? So, but besides the Chris Stapps thing, I can't poke too many holes, in this team. Like they return all their top guys. Like they spent so much freaking money, man, like this summer on all these extensions. It's crazy that they just kept this group together. But yeah, I don't have too much to add on the Celtics. I think they're going to be right there. I have them winning the title again, which feels gross, but couldn't come up with better cases for any other teams. Who do you have winning this championship?
I think it'll be the Thunder and the 76ers. I basically think Joel Embiid has been the best regular season player. Well, him and Jokic have been the best regular season players for like 5 years. And Embiid just has had basically the worst luck you could ever have in the playoffs of an NBA superstar. Like what he had, like an inner ear infection or something in the playoffs. Like he was like dizzy. What was this? I don't remember what it was called. So random.
He had Bell's palsy. Yeah.
Bell's palsy. His face was paralyzed in an NBA playoff game. Like he gets punched in the nose in a playoff series. It just, everything has gone against him. It's all set up for them now. They like win free agency. They get everyone's favorite minimum signings in free agency. They get Paul George, who is like the platonic ideal of the player you would want next to Embiid and Maxey. They've got their small, they've got their big, they've got their wing, they've got a bunch of interchangeable 3-point shooters to put next to them.
Yeah.
Just feels like it's Embiid's time.
Theoretically, I think you're right. I will say the season has not started off well for them.
Embiid's already limited, and George is hurt
for the preseason, and he's probably not going to play any back-to-backs this year, which is probably good, actually. And then Paul George hyperextended his knee yesterday, and they're saying might not be without a timetable. We'll see. Hopefully, he doesn't miss any time. But like, great start to the season, Philly.
Well, that right there is why the 76ers will never win an NBA championship. All that stuff I said is totally in theory. What I will say, I will actually, and I'll legitimately argue this, a 76er season that has 0.0% chance of Joel Embiid winning the MVP, absolute best thing for them. 100% best thing for them. If Embiid needs to play 32 regular season games, basically be on the Kawhi Leonard plan, That actually could not be better for them. Make sure that Embiid is in good cardiovascular shape when you get to the playoffs. Doesn't matter if you're the 5 seed. Doesn't matter if you're the 6 seed. You're going to have to beat the Celtics anyways eventually. I mean, hopefully you avoid them until the conference championship, but you're going to have to beat them anyway. Yeah. They've got a bunch of, I mean, you want to talk about, these are some all-star innings. Is there a better NBA innings eater than Andre Drummond? Andre Drummond is the perfect backup center for Joel Embiid. You want 20 and 10? He'll give you 20 and 10.
He'll give you 20-15. Just give the guy 28 minutes. He's gonna get 4 offensive rebounds of his misses. Like, it's just like, it's, oh my god, it's unreal. Just let him eat. Let him eat. They got Gershon Yabusele, who was great for
he was huge for France.
Yeah, in the Olympics. They you know, let him and Drummond cook while Joel rests up for the playoffs.
I mean, Reggie Jackson, Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, KJ Martin, Kelly Oubre. I mean, these are all-time guys who are ready to win 47 games without Embiid. Like this, like you take Embiid off this roster, you still probably can win 47 games because Maxi's that good. And Maxi's at the prime age to just let him go. Maybe say, Maxi, this is your year. Embiid is banged up. We're going to manage Paul George. You want to make third team All-NBA? This is your year. You want to score 35 points some nights? This is your year. Like that I think that is the cope along with it. I would love for Embiid to win a championship. I think Embiid is definitely one of those guys where the hate has gone too far, because he really is a great basketball player.
Yeah, and social media savant as well.
Definitely.
Also, you know, a big fan of Daryl Morey, and I think he deserves,
of course,
you know, his shine. So rooting for him as well. Yeah, I just hope they run better, because the season not even started, and they're Philly things are happening already.
Yeah, you know, little bit of a cursed action there in recovering the process. All right, Justin, let's go ahead and get out of here. Let the people know about signing up at Unabated and what to look out for over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, we'll be launching our product officially on October 21st, the day before the season. Like I said before, big things to look out for: conditional projections and percent play, best news alerts in the game. We got a really good team in place to give you everything you need to kind of take on NBA betting and make sure you're profitable and looking at it the right way. So yeah, really excited for that. We're gonna be doing live streams 3 times a week for our subscribers as well, and you'll catch us on Twitter too at Unabated _NBA.
All right, make sure that you guys are following that account. That'll be pretty big. I will see you guys in the Unabated Discord. I will be back on this YouTube channel and this podcast next week. I will see y'all